stomach. Please continue to get your coffee and your granola bars in the back. We have a fun-filled morning for you that you will need the caffeine and the sugar. If we could ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then following the Pledge of Allegiance, we will have the pledge to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you so much. You may be seated. Now, if you would turn your attention to the screen, either side, for a wonderful message from our presenting sponsor.
I'm Roy Thompson, Market President for Texas Partners Bank, your Hill Country neighborhood bank. You may have seen our new Texas Partners Bank building signs because we've expanded our bank to serve more Texas communities. We are, and always have been, trusted bankers you can count on, operating locally and independently with the same original ownership. Visit us in Bandera, Fredericksburg, or in Kerrville on 7 Baker Street South or downtown at the corner of Earl Garrett and Water Streets. Texas Partners.
We like this so much we want to hear it again. So thank you for being attentive to our presenting sponsor, Texas Partners Bank, for their 30-second commercial. At this time, I would like to ask President of Texas Partner Bank, Roy Thompson, to make his way to the stage. Roy has been a very active community leader since 1995, since he has been here. If you look at his resume, there's probably not a thing that he has not done in this community. So we're very blessed to have him and his staff here with us today and being our presenting partner. So I will turn the mic over to Roy for a few comments and then we'll get started. Roy?
Thank you, Mindy. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see all the familiar faces. I actually see a couple of new faces out there today. And I've been here in Kerrville since 1995 as a banker. And I've made a choice to stay in this town because this is a great community. Love the Hill Country. And I don't think of Kerrville as just my town. We've got Bandera, we've got Fredericksburg. As you guys all know, your businesses cross those county lines every single day. And it makes for just a great community effort. Now, still got a lot of Tybee pride. Had one son graduate from Tybee. 2 daughters went to school here, didn't end up graduating there. I want to introduce my staff today. Got a great staff, and I was sitting there thinking about it while Mindy was introducing me. Gosh, how many years of banking experience does my staff have? And I started with Kenneth earlier. Kenneth, would you tell everybody hello? And I was going to say, God, we've got close to 100 years of banking experience. Then I realized real quick that just Kenneth and I together had 100 years of banking experience. So we've also got Brian Dunnigan, Morgan Bond, Stony Boyd, and Scott McCarthy. And if you guys don't know everybody, please introduce yourselves. We've got a great staff. We've all been in this community for a number of years. A couple of us in different capacities, but we've all enjoyed the banking. I think being a banker is kind of it's almost like a calling. You kind of got to have a servant heart to work in a small community because you bank 24 hours a day. I know that I don't go to HEB without getting a banking question, so don't feel embarrassed to ever ask me a question while you're at HEB because I know I'm going to get the question from somebody, so I'm glad to have you here. We talked a little bit about the name change earlier. Names are just names. It's who you bank with. We've got a great bank. Like I say, I've been here since 1995 in the banking industry. Texas Partners Bank, our name originally was Texas Hill Country Bank. Many of you might not even know before that. We started this bank as Bandera First State Bank. But we merged all of our banks together during the pandemic, which we all remember, and that was a lot of fun. Well, one of the challenges during the pandemic is you couldn't get signage. not only did it get more expensive, you just actually couldn't get it even if you ordered it. So the name Texas Partners Bank actually been around since 2020 when we put all our banks together. And so we waited a little bit to get the signs, and we looked at the cost of signage, and we said, well, we'll wait a little bit longer. We're a business just like you guys. We have to make decisions every day about cost. And so we finally got all that completed last year. And it's been exciting because the Texas Partners Bank name is a strong name, and it represents who we are. I mean, you see our background up here, Texas Partners Bank. We're the Hill Country, we're Austin, we're San Antonio, and I think Kerrville is kind of right at the edge. We're anchored by Bandera, then we're anchored on the top end by Fredericksburg. But you take that triangle over to Austin, San Antonio, we're in three of the greatest markets, being Hill Country, Austin, and San Antonio that I can imagine. And we always look forward to helping new businesses. That's why we sponsor this. We're an entrepreneurial bank. I'm one of the owners. Almost everyone sitting down here is an owner in that bank. And we have a lot of local shareholders and local owners. So when you've got needs, we want to sit down and talk to you because we're going to try to do not what's best for the bank and not what's just best for you, but what makes sense for both the bank and for your business, because we want to make sure you have a long-term, thriving bank business. So with that, I think, Dustin, you're coming up next, so I'm going to turn the mic over to you. And thank y'all very much for allowing us to be the sponsor of this.
Hello. Thanks, Roy. Hi, I'm Justin Foster. I'm from Texas Regional Bank. We're a new bank here in town, but we are not new to Texas. We have over 30 locations across the state and 13 locations in the Hill Country. I am, as well as my staff, from Kerrville, and so much like it's hard to follow, the great one there, Roy, but much like Roy, we built our bank on local values and community relationships. So I encourage you guys to come see us. We're at the old Bank of America building there across from Sunflower Bank and the donut shop. So with that, I would like to introduce our State of the City speakers. First off is Mayor Joe Herring. Mayor Herring is a Kerrville native and a Tivy High School and University of Texas at Austin graduate. He is married to his college sweetheart, Carolyn. They have 2 grown children. Mayor Herring Jr. has served on multiple committees and boards, including KPUB, Kiwanis Club, Kirk County Historical Commission, Kerrville Main Street Advisory Board, Arcadia Theater, Riverside Nature Center, Playhouse 2000, Symposium of the Hills Association, Kerrville Folk Fest, and Kerrville Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Herring has been awarded multiple community recognitions, including the Kerrville Daily Times Bill Dozier Citizen of the Year in 2010. Joe was elected to the Kerrville City Council in 1990 and served as mayor 1992 to 1994, then again in 2022 as council member, and in 2024 as mayor. Over the years, mayor's instrumental projects have been rebuilding the downtown area, the river trail, recycling programs, and establishing Kerrville as a Texas Main Street city. Our next speaker, in addition to Mayor Herring, is City Manager Dalton Rice. He became the City Manager of Kerrville in October of 2023, following his tenure as the City Manager for Morgan's Point Resort. With 13 years of service in the U.S. Army Special Forces, Dalton brings a diverse background that includes experience as a paramedic, firefighter, and healthcare administrator. He holds a BS in Business Administration and Law, and MSHS in Healthcare Quality, and is a certified public manager. Active in professional organizations, Dalton is a member of the International City County Management Association, Texas City Management Association, and serves on boards such as the Kerrville Economic Development Corporation, Elevate Adult Education, and Here's to Our Heroes. Rice also participates in the community activities through the Rotary Club. Dalton is married to his wife, Anna, and they have 3 children, Rylan, age 14, and twins, Rhett and Riker, age 6. His leadership is grounded in family values and community engagement, balancing the demands of public service with his personal passions. In his free time, Dalton enjoys flying, skydiving, scuba diving, camping, and traveling with his family. Please welcome our speakers.
Good morning. As I'm coming up the steps, you know what's going through my mind? Don't fall, don't trip, don't fall, don't trip. I want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event. This event is not only important for each of us as individuals, but it's important to us as a community. I want to say thank you to Texas Partners Bank for being our event sponsor, and for the kind introduction I received from Texas Regional Bank. I myself am not a banker. To each of you attending, I want to say thank you. You've dedicated time out of your day to talk about our community's future, and that's important, and I appreciate you being here. A portion of the day, this first portion, is dedicated to the state of our city. Where are we going? What have we accomplished? In a moment, we will present a video that will answer some of those questions. I'm thankful for my fellow city council members. Place 1, Delane Siegerman, who's here. Give it away. Place 2, Jeff Harris, who's in the back. Place 3, Kent McKinney, who's in the middle. And place 4, our Mayor Pro Tem, Brenda Hughes. You can't be here this morning because she says she has a real child. You know, the thing about we five council members, we received a blessing just this week in that yesterday I signed documents canceling the May election, which means we 5 get to serve together for 12 more months. I hope over the last 12 months you've seen a group that can disagree without being disagreeable, who only has Kerrville's best interests at heart, and who works with staff instead of against city staff. We 5 are dedicated to the Kerrville 2050 plan. That was a plan, a comprehensive plan, developed by the citizens to say where we want to go as a community. Every decision we make is compared to that plan. Last May, the group got together with city staff and developed priorities about what we wanted to accomplish in these 12 months. And we've accomplished a great deal. There's more work to do, and I'm thankful that we'll have we 5 working together to solve those problems. After this video, and after remarks from Dalton Rice, our city manager, we'll be available for questions and answers. So, if you have something you've always wanted to ask, I won't know the answer, but I'll refer it to Dalton. So, without any further ado, our video. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Chris McCall, Chief of Police of your Kerrville Police Department, here to give you a briefing on our 2024 year review. Our year began continuing our planning for the April 8th, 2024 solar eclipse. The planning that went on during this event included partners from all over the state and all over the region. We were very proud to work alongside some of the best in the business, and those efforts led to a safe and successful solar eclipse day. One of the primary concerns for the Kerrville Police Department, beyond security of events in the area, was the traffic that we knew would occur post-event. That traffic led us to work with other partners such as TxDOT, Kerrville Sheriff's Department, Kerrville Fire Department, on a plan on how we would manage the traffic. Due to the planning, we were able to move most of that traffic out of the city onto I-10, safely back to their destination within hours. It was an example of how partnerships can work for our community. One of the largest projects for the Kerrville Police Department in 2024, as well as the city of Kerrville, is the Kerrville Public Safety Facility that stands behind me. The Kerrville Public Safety Facility has been a project in the making for years. Starting January of 2024, we broke ground on this facility, and from that day, this is what's sprung from the ground. The Kerrville Public Safety Facility is meant to house not only the Kerrville Police Department, but also Kerrville Fire Department administrative offices, the City of Kerrville Information Technology Services Division, and Municipal Court Complex. Our construction partners, as well as our partners within the City of Kerrville, have helped to make this a very successful project. We feel like this building is going to support public safety in our community for years to come. In 2024, the Kerrville Police Department was proud to continue their public outreach programs such as Coffee with the Cop, Cookies with Cops during Christmas, where we decorate cookies with young children, and our barbecues in neighborhoods. This gives us opportunities to meet those folks inside those neighborhoods and find out what their concerns are and how we can be of help. And we look forward to continuing with those programs and growing those programs in 2025.
Hello, I'm Diane Miller, and I'm blessed to be able to say that I'm the director of the Beth Holdsworth Memorial Library here in Kerrville. Before I share some of the exciting things about the library, I do want to make sure one important fact is known, and that is that your library card is completely free to all Kerr County residents. That's right, there's no charge, no hidden fees, just access to a world of resources. And don't worry, we won't shush you when you come in to visit. We're located at 505 Water Street, right next to the beautiful Louise Hayes Park. Our campus includes the Beth Holdsworth Memorial Library, the Kerr Regional History Center, and soon the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center located in the A.C. Schreiner Mansion. We offer a wide range of materials, books, newspapers, magazines, DVDs, and even puzzles. Plus, with your library card, you can access ebooks, e-audiobooks, streaming services, and all sorts of databases like World Book Online or Ancestry.com. Need technology? We've got it. We provide public computers, printing, copying, research, student exam proctoring, and even homebound delivery for patrons who need it. Each month, we circulate over 11,000 items. We answer over 1,000 questions and host over 600 computer sessions. And we put on about 35 programs, like our incredible Storytime program, as well as book clubs and author talks. Our library has been a community treasure since 1967, when it was opened to much fanfare by then First Lady, Lady Bird Johnson. It stands today thanks to the vision of Mary Elizabeth Holdsworth Butt, who believed in the power of education and community. We invite you to visit us online or in person. Thank you for your support, and we can't wait to see you at the library.
Hi, I'm Eric Maloney, and I am honored to serve as your fire chief for the Kerrville Fire Department. In 2024, our department responded to over 11,700 calls for service, including fire, first responder, and EMS calls. That's a 2.5% increase from 2023, and an incredible 25% rise since 2020. This year, we launched several initiatives and programs we're incredibly proud of. Today, I would like to highlight 3 major accomplishments that have significantly enhanced our ability to serve our community. First, the solar eclipses. Kerrville was at the crossroads of 2 major celestial events: the annular eclipse in October 2023 and the total eclipse in April 2024. Our emergency management team played a pivotal role forging partnerships with local, regional, and state agencies to ensure safety and preparedness. We focused on FEMA's 7 Community Lifeline, participating in over 150 meetings to create a robust plan. This collaboration united city departments, stakeholders, volunteers, and local businesses, setting a foundation not just for the eclipses, but for the future emergency response efforts. Next, let's talk about our EMS staffing model. In 2024, we implemented a groundbreaking staffing model to improve recruitment and retention. By hiring up to 12 EMTs and paramedics dedicated to ambulance, we shifted away from the traditional dual-certified firefighter staffing model. This new approach created a clear EMS career path, including the introduction of the EMS lieutenant position. We're also developing EMS education programs, a paramedic certification track, and a firefighter bridge program. Finally, our EMS clinical operating guidelines. In 2023, we partnered with UT Health Science Center and Dr. Stephen Harper as our new medical director. One of our significant advancements was the implementation of the whole blood program, which allows our EMS to administer whole blood to patients in critical need. Since then, we have also modernized our clinical guidelines, adding 10 new medications and treatment options. These include antibiotics, advanced pain management, hemostatic agents, sepsis treatment, and more, offering a progressive, responsive care tailored to rural healthcare needs. Thank you for taking the time to learn about the progress we have made. Your continued support drives us to serve our community better every day. Together, we're building a safer, stronger Kerrville. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julie Behrens, Director of Finance for the City of Kerrville. The city has been very busy with significant capital projects funded through various sources, including some debt obligations. It is important to recognize that debt for this project is paid for using a variety of funds. Bond funds for the public safety facility, for example, are repaid with property taxes, while projects like golf and pool renovations are funded by the Economic Improvement Corporation, or EIC. Water and wastewater projects are funded entirely by revenues generated from the water fund, which operates as an independent business. Transparency in financial matters remains a top priority. Part of transparency includes finding ways to better communicate how funds are allocated. Over the past few years, the city has prepared publications such as the Budget Brief and the popular annual financial report to condense the budget and financials for readers. In 2024, the city introduced the Balancing Act tool to citizens. This interactive platform allows the public to view and experiment with proposed budget and submit feedback. These submissions are compiled and shared with the city manager and city council. The city relies heavily on financial forecasting, budgeting, and for the future. The forecast is a living document that is modified by changing economic conditions. Forecasting ensures the resources are allocated for operations as well as replacement of critical assets like vehicles and equipment as well as infrastructure. Proper planning avoids unexpected financial strain when assets reach the end of their useful lives. Additionally, the city has implemented a proactive investment strategy over the past 2 years during the periods of higher interest. Investment revenue generated a $3 million surplus, which was designated to fund future needs for both the general fund and the water fund. These funds are part of the effort to create a more sustainable future. Looking ahead, the city's top priority is ensuring fiscal sustainability in order to continue to deliver excellent services and facilities to its residents for years to come. As always, we encourage citizens to contact us to discuss the city budget or finances. These conversations help us gain perspectives and to build relationships with the people that we serve.
Hi everyone, I'm Rose Ledesma, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. We've had an incredible year filled with milestones, improvements, and community celebrations. Let's dive into some of the highlights. Our Parks Maintenance team maintained over 1,000 acres of parkland, completing several key projects, including renovations to the golf course maintenance facility, updated basketball courts at Westland and Schultz Park, installed new work benches, trash receptacles, and bike racks, and improved signage at Kerrville Shrine Park. Through our community arts program, we collaborated to bring stunning new murals and art pieces to our parks, including the ramp behind the Buckholzwood Memorial Library and Louisia's Park. We've made progress on major projects funded by the sales tax revenue bonds with no impact on property taxes. These include the Scotch Iron Golf Course Improvement Project, which began in December 2024 and will be completed by December of 2025. The Olympic Pool Improvement Project, with construction starting in the spring of 2025. Playground replacements at Guadalupe Park and Kerrville Shrine Park, including Kerrville's first wheelchair-accessible playground, and the initial development plans for Granger McDonald Park to expand access to Nimitz Lake. Our events were a major success. Kerrville took the world stage at 2 Eclipse Festivals at Louisia's Park, drawing 64,000 visitors and earning international recognition. The NASA broadcast of our festival received over 11 million views on YouTube. We were honored with multiple awards, including gold and silver from the International Festival Events Association and recognitions from the Texas Recreation and Parks Society. 2024 marked the centennial of the Scotch Iron Golf Course. We celebrated with a special tournament, and the course saw over 25,000 rounds played and nearly $1 million in revenue. Our department hosted 33 special events, 27 of which were free, Concerts, movies, and our new Martin Heart program brought the community together. We welcomed over 17,500 swim patrons, taught over 200 kids how to swim, and hosted 600 tournament teams at the Colonel Sports Complex. Our Parks Office processed over 10,000 reservations. 2024 was an unforgettable year. From historic celebrations to world-class events, we're committed to enhancing Colonel's quality of life. Thank you to our community, visitors, partners, City Council, and EIC. Stay tuned for 2025, especially as we celebrate the 75th anniversary of Louise Hayes Park.
Hi, I'm David Guerrero, Director of Utilities for the City of Kerrville. In 2024, Public Works Streets Division once again achieved remarkable success. The city's road network, encompassing approximately 321 lane miles, received continued care through the Strategic Pavement Management Plan adopted in 2015. This comprehensive plan includes essential maintenance activities such as slurry sealing, crack sealing, milling and overlaying, and full-depth reconstruction. Since the plan's inception, over 300 lane miles have undergone maintenance. This past year, with valuable support from our engineering department, contractors successfully crack sealed 26 lane miles. Meanwhile, city crews from the Street Division completed over 7 lane miles of mill and overlay work. In addition to maintaining the city's road network, our skilled crews lent their expertise to various departments, contributing to site improvement projects. Notably, for the third consecutive year, the Texas Asphalt Paving Association recognized our team with top honors for their exceptional work on the airport runway project. Operational enhancements in 2024 included acquiring a new dump truck and a street sweeper through the Asset Replacement Program, further strengthening our capabilities. Looking ahead to 2025, we remain committed to preserving the integrity of our streets. This goal will be achieved through collaborative efforts across our organization and continued dedication to high-quality service delivery. Our accomplishments are made possible by a competent, dedicated, and engaged workforce. The Street Division extends its gratitude to the city's leadership for their direction, resources, and unwavering support, which enable us to serve Kerrville with excellence.
Hi, I'm Drew Paxton, Director of Development Services. The Development Services Department reviewed and approved approximately 1,978 building permits in 2024. We work with all developers and businesses to ensure compliance with our local zoning code, subdivision code, building codes, and health regulations. As businesses want to build or expand in the city of Kerrville, Development Services, along with a few other departments, are here to guide you through the process, from before the groundbreaking to the grand opening and beyond. In total, for 2024, Development Services completed 91 new residential permits, 19 new commercial permits, over 5,000 inspections, 33 subdivision plats, 31 zone cases, 852 code enforcement cases, 235 restaurant and bar inspections, over 20 mobile food units, 40 pool inspections, 7 daycare inspections, 9 nursing home inspections, 7 school inspections, and 6 large food retailer inspections. In June 2024, we kicked off the update to the city's comprehensive plan, Kerrville 2050. The update to the plan is scheduled for adoption in early summer 2025. This update will help set priorities for the city of Kerrville for years to come.
Is this microphone working? Perfect. I feel like I should be breaking out in song and dance or do the Kendrick Lamar walk as I come up here with this headset. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here, our community members, our business leaders, investors, and partners who are deeply interested in the city of Kerrville. I'm Dalton Rice, the city manager for City of Kerrville. Before I dive in, I want to take a moment to recognize and express my deep appreciation for our mayor and city council. Your vision, guidance, dedication, decisiveness make everything we do possible. Your leadership continues to drive Kerrville forward, ensuring that we grow responsibly while staying staying true to what makes this city special. I also want to give a huge shout out to our incredible City of Kerrville team. The work that happens behind the scenes, the day in, day out, often goes unnoticed, but it's the foundation of everything we accomplish. From public safety to infrastructure, to parks and permitting, it's your dedication that keeps Kerrville thriving, so thank you. Now, we know that watching a video at an event like this can sometimes feel underwhelming, but it's the best way to showcase what some of our departments are doing without subjecting them to death by PowerPoint, because I know I don't like it. The video gave you just a glimpse into the work happening across the city, but today I want to build on those themes. And talk about what's ahead, what's driving our progress, and how we're shaping Kerrville's future. Kerrville is growing, but we're doing so with intentionality. Over the year, Development Services has issued over 596 building permits, including commercial and residential projects that support our business and housing community. As we work to balance the workforce needs, housing, and job growth while preserving our natural resources and quality of life, City Council has been strategic in addressing these housing issues. Nearly 300 apartment units are set to become available over the next 2 years. Nearly 900 single-family homes are projected to be completed over the next 5 to 7 years. On the original Lennar project, which is about 130 homes, almost all of those properties have been sold, and some of them are currently being built. Parks and Recreation continues to enhance our community's quality of life with award-winning events and new public art installations through CVB's Community Arts Program and local partnerships. Looking ahead, we are planning other enhancements throughout the city, including an 18-hole disc golf course out at Sandy Wind Park that's going to surround Olympic Hill, adding another exciting outdoor amenity for the residents and visitors alike. But we know that development isn't just about expansion. It's about sustainability and resilience. Water is one of the many challenges and opportunities Kerrville faces. We are actively working to secure both short and long-term water resources through strategic planning, conservation initiatives, and proactive communication. To ensure transparency and community engagement, we are developing a water strategic communications plan, which will help focus on public outreach, proactive messaging about our water management strategies. Our water management plan is evolving to ensure that as Kerrville grows, we have the infrastructure in place for both our current and future residents and businesses. City Council and our team remain committed to build both short and long-term conservation strategies, ensuring we protect and optimize Kerrville's water resources for the future. These efforts ensure that Kerrville remains a place where businesses can thrive and live comfortably as we plan for the next generation. A growing economy means investing in people. I think that's why we're all here today. Our workforce, our small businesses, and industries that fuel our region. Economic development efforts are shaping the future for strategic investments, including partnerships with the city, EIC, and the county to expand Alimony Road, paving the way, pun intended again, I guess, paving the way for Mega Creek to join our welcoming community. I think CEO Salvador Garza is here. Not yet? Okay, well, he's supposed to be here today, and we appreciate him showing value to our community. On the retail front, with retail accounting for over 52% of our sales tax, our team is working to expand economic development functions that support small business retention and expansion. Additionally, we are identifying opportunities to further diversify Kerrville's business landscape and strengthen our local economy. A key focus of our economic strategy is continuing to revitalize our downtown and Main Street corridor. We are currently updating the 2050 comprehensive plan and developing a downtown master plan that enhances and aligns with City Council's and Kerrville 2050 vision. These efforts will help guide future investments, enhance walkability, and create a vibrant, business-friendly community that strengthens Kerrville's identity as a destination for both residents and visitors. Other initiatives like the Kerr County Leadership Cohort, which I'm a part of this year, and the Hill Country Alliance Cohort, both we're doing this year, which focuses on both local leadership and on water resources or natural resources throughout a 17-county region, are amazing. amazing programs that foster and bring leaders together who will help move our city forward for generations to come. As we look ahead, the state of the city is not just a reflection, it's a call to action. Our success depends on partnerships between government, business, and the community. We need to continue to strengthen our economic development efforts while preserving Kerrville's heritage and natural resources. We must balance growth with sustainability, ensuring that our infrastructure and public services don't outpace the demand. We must stay informed and we must educate ourselves to discern facts from misinformation and avoid being influenced by the fear-driven narratives that lack factual basis. And most importantly, we need your ideas, your collaboration, and your feedback. I want to thank the mayor, city council, and our outstanding city team, and most importantly, all of you for being here today. The state of our city is strong, not because of what we've done, but because of the people who are in this room that are helping shape what's next. We appreciate you being here today, and we'd like to open up the floor for questions. Thank you. Be gentle.
Y'all don't be shy.
Yeah, don't be shy. I know this group isn't shy.
Good morning, y'all. I had a question. She mentioned the water fund and the finance portion of the video, and I was curious how much water the city of Kerrville is selling currently, if y'all could address that.
To clarify, selling the water to consumers or anybody. So we are doing about 670 million gallons of residential water use per year. About 10 to 30% of that, about 10% of that is irrigation. We're doing about 290 million gallons of commercial a year. About 70 million gallons of irrigation, about 3 million into fire hydrants, which that could be any number of things, miscellaneous. And we're saving about 200 to 300 million gallons of potable water a year by our reuse. So while the reuse is not, that's why I can't have nice things. While our reuse is not potable water, by us using reuse for irrigation, it saves on the potable water. So anywhere between 1 to 1.3 billion gallons of water a year.
Let me translate. A lot of water.
All right, what else? All right, thank you, Fina.
When is the public safety facility going to be open?
That's a Michael Hornets question, but it's going to be end of this year. We'll start moving in probably fourth calendar quarter, give or take.
The council approved the next step was buying furniture and desks and chairs and stuff at our last meeting. But it's anticipated to be gone, from what I understand, by the end of the year.
Yes. Yeah, and that moving process will take some time. You know, obviously there's a lot of stuff with PD. There's three. You have IT, fire, and police department that are all moving into these, and municipal court, and municipal court. So 4 departments that are all moving into this facility. So once the construction's done, it will still take some time to get everybody moved in.
We're located geographically kind of on the fringe of the huge growth in the Long area along I-35 between Austin and San Antonio. I wonder if we could just kind of look forward and, for us, 4 years or so that the Long area continues to grow. How do you think that will affect what our opportunities and what's going on?
Yeah, so the question was, you know, as we're kind of in a relatively close proximity to San Antonio or a major metropolitan, how does the growth of that, you know, over the next 20 years, what does that look like? What opportunities, what challenges? The great thing about the hill country, and one of the reasons why we love it so much, is the hills. And that terrain and topography slows things down. It's naturally going to slow things down. So I don't know. I don't know. We know that San Antonio is going to expand. We're growing about 1.2% a year, so we're at a pretty manageable growth. Some of the opportunities that could come out as it does expand, kind of west, which we know it will, that does improve our workforce. It does improve the availability of workforce, because if they're building houses, then we can get the workforce off of those. But Mayor, do you have anything that you want to add on that?
I'm becoming one of the older people in the room, and a similar question was asked the last time I was mayor, 1992, 1994. What are we going to do with all this growth in San Antonio that's going out and out and out? And I assured the people who asked me back in 1994 that we've already shut the gate, no one else can come in, we're good. That didn't happen. What we have to do is plan for growth. Whether we want growth, we don't want growth, we have an idea in our mind what growth looks like, growth is going to happen. Our job, in my opinion, is to plan ahead. And I think you're seeing that not only on the city level, but also at EIC, where you serve, and other boards and commissions around the community. We're trying to think about not what happened today, but what will happen the next 30, 40, 50 years. And when I was running last time in 92, what's the biggest issue for facing Kerrville? And guess what it was, in my opinion? Water. If for some reason I'm on a cycle that I have to show again in 30 years, and serving city government, I'm almost positive I would say our most important issue facing Kerrville is water. And so, planning for growth, being ready for growth, is a priority not only of this council, but of city staff.
The Whiskey Springs development. So it is still on our radar. It's still in the very early stages of everything. They still have a lot of challenges that they have to work through, like any other new development. So it's moving. It's just still too early to tell. So they still got to work through a lot of obviously water issues, wastewater issues, infrastructure issues. There's just a lot of air.
In addition, that if I'm remembering correctly, that was a planned development district, which was approved like 15 years ago. And so, what is going on now was actually approved some time ago. The parameters of them coming in on city services have yet to be determined, but our job right now is to try to make sure that not only do we integrate well with our community, but we're able to serve the needs that they have.
Sticking with growth, one of the things that I've been wondering about is the state keeps taking away power from the county. And the county's losing its ability on subdivisions and such, and water's a big concern, so we're moving up the size of the lots for wells. But how are we going to address that in the city? Because frankly, having folks in the city is more efficient, it's cheaper, it's better for conserving our water and our resources and consolidating everything with the tax base and such. But our growth has been outside the city if you look at Kirk County over the last 10 years. And so how are we going to really drive that lack of control outside to come into the city and be welcome?
I don't want to put anybody on the spot. Is there a representative from county government here today? I think that answers your question, actually.
Thank you.
The problem is the county government's role in regulating growth and development has been systematically carried away by the legislature. They never really had a limits-making authority to begin with. But what they could do has been whittled away. What can the city do in support of the county? Well, for one thing, the groundwater we are committed to take out of the aquifer by the Underground Water Conservation District, we take only a small fraction of what we could take. We could take 80% more than we're taking now, and we're not. And why is that? We have other sources, but also we're trying to be good stewards. and share a resource that obviously extends from beyond our city limits. The problem is, the city of Kerrville has no authority outside the limits of the ETJ. And I do not know how the county government hopes to solve the problems you're bringing up, because they lack the authority to do so. I'm sorry about that.
No, Mayor, that's great. And really, I'd add on to that, we're just, the Texas legislation, they operate every 2 years. We're in the current legislative cycle now. Out of the 46, 5,000 bills that have already been filed, we're looking at breaking another record. And a lot of those bills are anti-city, anti-local governments. Counties have typically been out of the crosshairs, for a lot of them, because they are they operate, kind of like a state, authority, if you will. And it's a double-edged sword, right? It's the crux. As a city, people complain, well, we're paying taxes, we're getting all of this, you have strict regulations, it's my property, I should do what I want, but because of those strict regulations, or those regulations, if you will, we're not running into those issues that the county has. And then as you add those legislative, issues where we used to be able to plan for the ETJs, and even our long-range water plan has planned for the ETJ, which is the extraterritorial jurisdiction. So it's an imaginary line that expands, Drew's going to yell at me for this, but probably a mile or half a mile, depending on your population. But the state's taking authority away from even cities in the ETJ. So it's an unfunded mechanism that we have the ability to do it, but it's not cost beneficial because we can't annex in anymore because they took away annexation. So it's a challenge, and city councils across the state are having to navigate these issues and how we balance that. And so, no good right answer. Those that want to live, those that live in the county don't want to pay the taxes. They don't want all of this, but they want the amenities. Those that live in the city, they have other amenities that they get. So,
and the plain truth is simple. Every citizen of the city of Kerrville, every one of us, is also a citizen of the county. And sometimes our local government forgets that. Do you have questions?
Thought we were going to get hard questions.
Jennifer Dolphin, could you give us just a 60,000-foot view of the city's finances?
Sound. We spent a lot of time, and Ms. Barron is here today. She's our director of finance. Not only is our budget online, but there's a more, it's called a popular book that's a little easier to read for non-numbers people. But we also came out with a tool where our citizens would say, okay, I'm going to cut back about 50% here and 50% here and add here. What does that do to the tax rate? What does that do to our budget? So not only is every nickel, penny, and dime shown online, the citizens can go online and tweak it and see if they can make it better. I don't know how to make it more transparent. But in my view, the work of the city finance department and the city management team, our finances are strong.
So to add some kind of objectivity and stuff to that, and some key things that we've done over the past almost year and a half, can't believe it's almost been that long, feels like a lot longer. This last budget year, we reduced reliance on irrigation revenues by about 30%. So even though we're irrigating still, and we're still getting the revenues from that, we reduced the reliance on that. Now, obviously, we all know there's a cost effect to that, but what that does is it ensures that we stay at least at a minimum break even, or we try to work towards that break even on some of our business functions. I think we had a 4.7% increase on our total citywide budget last year. Most of that was salaries and wages. That's unfortunately what's getting that. So we run a very lean city, overall. And there's some things that the city has done, to take care of its residents. A third of our tax base is frozen. That is about $2 million a year that we would get on the general fund, and that's not changing. That's not going away. So we have to operate within our means. On the city charter, we have some things on the city charter that actually are some really great checks and balances, but at the same time, there are limitations. we have to have a structurally balanced general fund, which is a good thing, cash in, cash out. But on top of that, we can only have 25% of our interest and sinking, so our debt tax rate can only be 25% of our total tax rate. That's a very limiting factor where a lot of cities could go up to 33% or 35%, which is typically more common. So when you take in the revenue, we'll say the revenue impacts that you would get typically from property taxes, but then add some of those other limiting factors, we are right at our 25% debt capacity cap for ad valorem taxes. However, there's other bonds or taxes there's other bonds or debt mechanisms that we can take out, typically in water or on the business side. But every budget year we do navigate that, and we have a healthy fund balance of about 25%. I think Julie's probably shaking her head somewhere, but it's pretty close. So we have a good healthy fund balance, and this year we're going to constantly look at how do we tweak different things here to operate within our means. So overall, I am very happy with it. It doesn't take away from the challenges though. We are going to be faced with having to deal with salaries and wages, and what does that look like, and what this upcoming budget year is going to be.
Can I answer your question? I neglected earlier to say thank you to my predecessor, Mayor Judy Eichner, who's in the room. There's no one in Kerrville that misses her more than I. Right.
Morning.
Oh, I didn't see you there.
Sorry. Office 16 next to River Hill is some sort of, residential development going on. I'm just curious what that is.
That is a great question.
Is that Rich Crossing?
I don't really get it.
That might, yeah.
I don't know if it's county or city, because I'm not in the county.
No, it's a private ranch.
Private ranch. So what I will say, since I don't have the answer to that question directly, we are working on some tools through our GIS, which is our Geographical Information Systems, fancy stuff, but basically we're working on a development tool that you can kind of scroll through and see what developments are being planned, what developments are upcoming, potential. So that's in the works. It's not public yet, but City Council got a preview of that on Tuesday evening during the workshop, so we encourage you to go check that out. And we scroll through and kind of show what developments are up and coming.
Now, all city council members are all city council meetings are presented on YouTube, so you can go back and look and see what we're talking about. Gilbert?
Good morning, Dalton. Good morning, Joe. I'm on the EXC board, and recently y'all talked a little bit about what the city's trying to do in terms of economic development. I think I have a pretty good understanding of where y'all are going with it, but I don't think enough people probably in this room understand some of the new ideas that y'all have in terms of economic development. Can you talk a little bit about some of your ideas and how we can spur more manageable growth here in town?
All right, economic development means a lot of things to a lot of different people. In years past, from the Current Economic Development Foundation, and then now the EDC, Current Economic Development Corporation, that has meant going out and finding new businesses, new employers, new sales tax generators, the city council has not yet had a chance to talk about those ideas, so I'm going to be saying things that represent my views and not the views of the council. But another aspect of economic development is helping the businesses that are already here. The people who've been paying taxes, who've been employing people, who've been making widgets or mowing lawns or cutting hair or frying chicken or having nail salons. Why can't we focus some of our economic development efforts on the people who are here? Okay? Now, I understand the need to bring in outside employers and bring in new sales tax generators. I get it. But come with me. And they want to know what we're doing for them. I think we're going to see a change here in economic development in our community. And it's my hope we will find an efficient and effective way to help businesses that are open.
So to add on to that kind of vision, and while we're kind of looking, at it, one of the data points that I talked about in my speech was 52% of our sales tax revenue is retail, it's small businesses, and that's a large portion. And while primary jobs can be important, there's different functions of it. So sales tax, for example. We have EIC, which is a type B organization, and it's in a way here it's a funding vehicle for economic development functions based off of, I think it's what, half a cent property tax, half a cent sales tax. When you look at economic development and the umbrella of economic development, it's pretty large. It's expansive, and it's not just about bringing the businesses in or even focusing on business retention and expansion of existing businesses, whether that's large or small. One of the conversations we kind of had is about sales tax within the general fund. Well, Parks and Rec, when we look at some of our loss leaders, the departments that we'll just say don't make money or have to be in a way subsidized because we are government, versus those that are enterprises that make money, those amenities are the exact same things that we typically try to fund through sales tax, through property tax, through other things, to help drive some of those economic development initiatives. So again, a park, even though some of that may be funded by sales tax, while it may not be directly impacting new sales tax development, that's what the EIC is for. That's what economic development functions are for. Using that half a cent sales tax for marketing, for driving new sales tax, focusing on business retention and expansion. The big stones and the small stones. It is all kind of one cohesive umbrella. I did a terrible job at picking that umbrella the other night, but the city is focused on it, and even though it's not directly related to it, the housing piece, the parks, the infrastructure, all of those community development functions play a pivotal role in what economic development looks like. And so what we're trying to do, and what City Council has kind of guided us on, through the 2050 plan and through their visions, is how do we tap into that small business component, the small retail side. We do have vacant buildings in there. How do we identify those? How do we help businesses either expand into those facilities, or have new inventory of that? So we're trying to change and modernize the landscape, but we're also trying to fill a gap that we know exists, within the economic development sphere. So I know that's a very high level of what we're trying to accomplish, but definitely more on the economic development front as we roll some of these initiatives out and talk to City Council.
Earlier you mentioned misinformation. I'm going to give a couple of examples of what you consider to be misinformation. Set the record straight.
So, I think you'd have to have an entire conference for that one. A lot. I'm going to generalize it here in a sec, because sometimes there's some specific stuff that we do. Sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't. Again, we're trying to be very proactive. Where when you deal with misinformation, it is very reactive, right? And I think the key point out of all of this is we got to critically think our way through things. And critical thinking and common sense is, well, I'll be honest, it's a dying attribute. But with the misinformation side, don't just look at one resource to do it. We're trying to get information out on the city website, on Facebook. Our entire team, if you call them and say, hey, I want to know more about X, Y, and Z, they're going to schedule a time with you long before we even get it. And so there is a lot of misinformation out there. Off the top of my head, putting me on the spot, I'm trying to think of some. I think the key is just being informed. Being informed. Data is data, right? And how we interpret the data is, varies for everything. Water obviously has been a big topic of discussion. A lot of misinformation surrounds water. A lot of other cities don't have the resources or the sources of water that we have. So the complaints we get can range from, hey, a deer is pooping on the sidewalk, we want the city to do something about it, all the way to But we are working on trying to address those in a more proactive versus reactive way.
Misinformation basically is someone getting a little piece of the story right and then running with that without having the whole story. And I think you're always going to have that. I think that's just part of the nature of public comment. I don't know how many times people have said that I personally have become enriched by being on the city council, and my bank records don't reflect that. And another big piece of misinformation is that I know what I'm doing.
One real quick that did just come to mind is Lennar. There's a big topic of discussion on Lennar Homes and what they're doing and that they're out of compliance and all of this. They are in compliance. They are following the contract. While things are not perfect, no, nothing is. But the bottom line is when it comes to code and housing, Aaron Barnes and our development team, they do meet the minimum standard. And minimum, unfortunately, is still a standard, right? That's one that we address, the compliance of the reporting. While yes, you're seeing homes that are on market for $325,000 or something doesn't matter. Banks do funny math, and lenders do funny math, and then home builders do funny math.
There are bankers in the audience, sir.
Sorry. So in all that funny math, no matter what, it has to pencil out to $275,000. If you walk in there and they say that house is $325,000, you're like, well, I'm paying cash. Guess what? You're only paying $275,000 because they have to fall under DOT standards. So that's probably one of the most recent, I'll say, not misinformation, but some of the questions that have come up about, well, they're saying one thing, but we're doing this. And our finance team, we've actually Lennar has actually caught about 5 errors out of all the ones that are sold, and they've mitigated it and fixed it themselves. So that's just one example.
They're telling us we have 5 minutes left. Any lightning round questions for us? Yes, sir.
What are you guys watching the legislature right now?
I have not watched the legislature.
I definitely don't have 5 minutes on that. But I would say there's a lot of bills that are going out. We encourage you to go to Texas Municipal League, look at some of the things that are impacting cities. If I had to pick one in the short time that I have, there's a Senate bill and a House bill that we're trying to support. Well, there's a House bill we're trying to get a companion for that focuses on workers' comp. As it stands right now, for anybody who's in the landscaping business, if you own a landscaping business and you want to do business with the city, you could be a sole proprietor and you have to have workers' comp to come work for the city. And I think that's a limiting factor for small businesses and for rural communities. So there is a bill that would add an exemption threshold to that workers' comp to not limit. So we are in support of that one. There's, I think, $5 billion worth of water-type infrastructure bills that are coming. We're still really early in the election. I think we have a couple weeks until filing deadline, and so we're about to see them rocket. Bills. We're expecting 10,000 bills this session. We have kind of a general list of things that we're monitoring and kind of working through. But yeah, we are tracking and monitoring quite a few.
All right, 3 minutes. Anybody? If not, I want to say 2 things. First, thank you for your attention and your questions. Dalton and I will be here for a bit, but if you have really difficult questions, Dwayne Seegerman, Kevin King, and Jeff Harris are all here as well. Mindy, Chamber, thank you for doing this. It's a wonderful thing for our community. Now, thank you for your sponsorship and others. I want to close by just my portion by saying Kerrville is a great place. It's a great place to grow up, to raise your kids, and to retire. And Lord willing, we'll give you all 3 of those right here. So thank you.
I'm going to let you close it out. So thank you all for being here.
have some more coffee on behalf of the Kerrville Board of Realtors. Thank you.
Living the dream?
We got a young kid who works for us. He's not picking up on trim, detail work, he's young, low 20s, been with us for 3 years. We're probably going to end up letting him go. He's a smart kid. That's so tough. But he's not getting the trim work. He's not getting the detail.
It's like being in a place where you always need help with a little detail. And I love the young guy.
Right. And
I love it. I'd say we're doing a successful project.
yeah.
All right, tell me who you talk.
I do have another kid.
I don't know how you
But so we love it. We're our heart is for him. I think what's getting him swamped is he's so focused on trying to pick up all this stuff than just learn framing. Just go after framing. If you're cool with it, I might give him your number. Just reach out to him. Have lunch with him. He just needs to.
That's one thing. I used to try to, when we didn't know stuff, try to teach them everything.
Well, and that's what I think is drowning.
This is our same person. They're not learning anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll give you your number. Yeah, take a measure of it. processes. And I need somebody to push everything forward. And honestly, that's kind of what we're doing. It's an company. Small area, work in a small area. City of Austin. If we were all a lot bigger, you'd have so much just about a guy who only knows how to frame. Right? You'd probably keep him busy all the time. Framer, I want to frame all day, every day. I want to too, man. We ain't framing every day. Sometimes you got to do that contract. It's like the church in corner. Yes, it is. Speaking of which, March the 25th, lunch. Yeah. I'm decided where. Have a group lunch thing? Somewhere we could like grab. It's going to be maybe 10 or 12 of us. I'm signing up for all kinds of lunches. But I'll have to reach out to you. Everything happens at the city council. State.
He gave some Federal Reserve.
Oh, no, from the state?
Yeah, from the state. He gave a brief on inflation, the impacts on Texas, what that's looking like, the housing market from the state, which was actually really good. He was hoping they were going to have a repeat of that now that the election has happened and there's some other
what did you think?
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to go ahead and get started. We have a couple of housekeeping questions for the audience today. Earlier today, we had our beautiful staging by Ashley Furniture Store with our lights on. Are they better off? Off? Okay. Off seven. I would also like to thank our great sponsor, Perger Board of Realtors, are here in the house. Thank you, K-Board. We are very blessed to be able to introduce and have for a few minutes our next speaker. Kerrville native Julie Davis is the president and CEO of the Kerrville Convention and Visitors Bureau. Julie earned her Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from Angelo State University, and then she came back to Kerrville to begin her career in tourism. Julie has earned a certified tourism executive through the Texas Travel Alliance's Texas Tourism College, as well as a Texas Destination Marketer certification through the Texas Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus. She has well over 20 years of tourism and marketing experience. She has a passion for promoting Kerrville, the Kerrville area, and bringing visitors to experience this beautiful city and what we have to offer. Julie is one of our best examples of Kerrville native doing so well. She started with the Convention and Visitors Bureau under the direction of now retired Executive Director Sudi Burdick, and then now retired Executive Director Charlie McElwain. Charlie's in the office today, in the audience today. So Julie has really risen from the ranks to embrace tourism and the economic impact that it has on our area. So without further ado, I introduce you, Julie Davis.
All right, thank you, Mindy. That was really sweet. Thank you guys for having me here today. Since the mayor mentioned he says to himself not to fall, I say don't stomp, don't stomp, don't stomp. when I go across the stage. My whole life, my dad has told me not to stomp, but I still do it, as you heard me go earlier for water. Anyway, thank you for having me today. I'm excited to talk about how tourism impacts our economy, both in the U.S., in Texas, as well as right here locally. It's a pretty big economic driver, and we're guilty of saying we're the fun people. We're the fun people in the room. We're having fun. It's travel and tourism, but we forget to talk about the importance and value that we bring, in addition to being the fun guys in the room. So we'll get started. I think. No. You guys will just have to guess what's on the slides. There it goes. All right. Hopefully this isn't too far ahead. So why tourism matters. Before I dive into the stats for Kerrville, I want to talk about just the general overreaching thing for really the world on why tourism and travel matters. So visitors feed our economic engine. They provide a lot of economic input, right? They come in, they spend their money, they move on and go home. So you don't have to maintain them as well. Travel and tourism is actually one of the world's largest service exports, and it's one of the largest employers. Travel and tourism also enhances your quality of life. So in addition to that economic piece, you get a better community, you get a better destination, you have more jobs, you have more tax dollars, and then you get to enjoy the same things that all of our visitors enjoy, those facilities. So why does it matter here? Job opportunities, hospitality is actually the second largest employer in Kerr County, just behind the medical industry. So, and it's not a real big jump between the two, so it's pretty important here. It brings in an influx of dollars, as I said earlier, from other communities. So those are dollars that were paid somewhere else, right? And they come here, they get left here for our community to enjoy. It generates additional tax revenue, that's always important. And what that does is reduce our tax burden as citizens living here. And then it adds culture. This is the one I think we forget about a lot. It adds culture and diversity to our community. You get things like the Museum of Western Art, you get the River Trail, you get all of these wonderful attractions and quality of life projects. They support us, but they also support the visitor, and so they can't live independently of each other. So I jumped ahead a little. Anyway, there's more on that. Restaurants too, all of that stuff. So the U.S. travel and tourism impact is pretty significant for the U.S. When I started looking into it, I was floored. I knew it was important, but in 2024, the World Travel and Tourism Council released a report stating that the U.S. had the most powerful travel and tourism market out of the whole world. It contributed a record-breaking $2.36 trillion to our economy. Anybody want to guess what number 2 was? Who was $1 trillion behind us? A whole $1 trillion. Anybody have a guess? China. So I was just really floored by that. I knew it was important. I didn't expect to be $1 trillion ahead of the next guy, right? So it supports 18 million jobs in the U.S. The economic footprint, as you trickle it all down, is 2.8 trillion. And then another factoid that I found really cool is that 68% of the trips that start in the U.S. stay in the U.S. So that's pretty significant too, right? That means as citizens, we're keeping our dollars here. And there's my source. All right, so economic impact. We're going to talk about the state of Texas now. The state of Texas gives us great resources on travel and state tourism. Don't worry about reading the whole chart. I can tell you where to go find it if you really want to dive into it. This is for 2023 data. They won't update 2024 until probably April, so we're getting there. But it's a strong piece of our economy. The biggest thing I wanted to point out on here was that accommodations and food are the top sectors of spending, and then of course the impact in general. So the overall economic impact is that $94.8 billion of spending in Texas from travelers in 2023. There's also 1 in 11 jobs in Texas are related to travel and tourism. 1.3 million jobs is what that 1 in 11 is. It's pretty big. And then those jobs earn $72, almost $73 billion. Pretty big deal. Travel spending, this one breaks down just the impact of what the spending does for Texas. It is, as you can see on the chart, rebounded very quickly from 2020, very well. We're surpassing 2019. A lot of states still are not. A lot of cities still are not. So that's been good. But you can also see it's leveling off, right? 47% of the travel spending in Texas is by Texans. I also find that significant, so I circled it for you. And then here in Kerrville, 85% of our visitors are from Texas. So again, we're keeping our money here where we want it. State and local taxes, all that spending's got to generate something, right? And it's the thing we like most, probably as government, is the taxes that come in. What I found impactful on this one is that half of that is sales tax. So they're spending dollars here, right? So now what's it mean locally? What does it do for Kerrville and Kerr County? It's 1,100 jobs at Kerrville, 1,600 jobs in the county. Those earnings of those jobs, close to $35 million for Kerrville, almost $50 million countywide. And then the spending, $85 million in Kerrville, $120 So pretty important dollars to make a difference here for us. In addition to that, I started looking at, so those are things the state always shows us every single year. Started looking at what else. And one of the numbers that I haven't honestly ever paid a whole lot of attention to, I shouldn't probably admit that, I just hadn't really seen it before until I was looking at another report, was hotel revenue. I see the hot tax. I'm always thinking hot tax. What are we getting for hot tax? But the revenue is important too, right? Those are dollars that come into our community and get spread around. So last year, in 2024, our hotel revenue was $22 million, over $22 million. When I went back, our top year was 2022, $25 million in hotel revenue. And that includes short-term rentals, within the city limits. So pretty significant. And over the past 5 years, that total, we put all five together, $111 million. Hotel occupancy tax is always important too, right? We always talk about that one. That one's the overnight stay the city collects, tax, but the state collects it too, and then we can use it on things like my organization, obviously, for marketing, getting more overnight stays, but it also helps projects like arts, the Fourth on the River, lots of other things that we all enjoy here in the community. And then our second largest revenue source for the city of Kerrville is sales tax. And so visitors generated $3 million of that. It's pretty important. And $4.9 million for Kerr County. All right, so with that, I went down a rabbit hole. What does $3 million buy you? Right? I'm just going to look at the sales tax of our visitors. I've already apologized to Julie and Trina that I went through the budget online and I did round some things up because the fractions made more sense. But I'll explain it as we go through. In 2023, I think it was, the City of Kerrville's maintenance budget was almost exactly the same as sales tax generated by visitors. It's a whole piece of the budget, right? 2023, it was almost half the PPP budget. It was a little under half. It was a third of fire and EMS. This one, I have to admit, I had to look up, I saw in the budget for this year, 2 fire engines for around $2 million. So I'm just estimating 3 would be $3 million. So I think that's pretty important. And then I bugged someone else at City Hall and asked more questions. How much road can we resurface? Like, how does it impact there? 48 miles. I was blown away by that. So I think it shows how important sales tax is for our community, our visitors and our sales tax. Speaking of tax, let's talk about household tax. How much do we save as citizens because of visitors? It's a really long chart. Don't worry about all that. That's the state explaining where they get this number. Right there's what you need to look at. $573 a year saved for you guys. So then I went down the next rabbit hole. What happens if we don't have visitors anymore? What happens if we shut up all those hotels, throw away that $22 million in revenue, and just close the gates, right? Sales tax collections down 20%, just in the city of Kerrville. That's actually not looking at the county's numbers. EIC funding related to your sales tax, it's going down. EIC funding pays for a lot of fun, great stuff that we all love here, right? A lot of projects we need, quality of life, infrastructure, all of it. Now they've got to make some serious decisions. They've lost 20%. Property tax, this one's bad. It's going up. It's doing the opposite, right? So in addition to our eggs going up, we got to pay a whole lot more property tax. And I looked it up, and for some context, the average home value for Kerr County, I think it was in 2023, median home was $242,000, making property tax average $2,815. So now you're at over $3,000, right? $3,015, I think. And then don't forget about the jobs. So in addition to everything, funding going down, other things going up, we've now lost 1,600 jobs. We have 1,600 people unemployed in Kerr County, 7% of our workforce unemployed. So that alone, to me, tells me it's pretty important and significant here in our county. But I can't end on a sad note because I am the fun guy. I'm the guy that likes to talk about the good stuff. So really quick, because he's flashing me my sign, I told him we need to take 15 minutes, so I guess I It brings a lot of really, really great things, many of the things that we enjoy. And they're either because of tourism or they thrive because of the tourism, right? They don't live independently of each other. So things like the Purple River Trail, funded through EIC dollars, right? If we had cut EIC by 20%, could they have supported that project? I don't know, I wasn't on that board, but I don't know. They might have had to make a really tough decision, right? All of our arts, we have amazing art scene here. They receive assistance with HOT funding, they also receive marketing assistance, and then we all get to enjoy it. But also, they can't exist without the visitor helping to support them too. Our events, we've got 4th of July on the river, we've got Folk Festival, so many other events. Again, they need visitors to sustain, and they need those dollars as well. Museum of Western Art, and public art, all of it. And that's just to name a few, right? That's not even getting into things like our restaurants, our businesses. One of those tax documents talks about the property tax. We don't think about the property tax tied to a hotel. So it's pretty significant. I think I've taken up all of my time because he quit showing me signs. But we made it to the end. I will apologize. Someone was expecting the really fun stats on where people come, where they go, what they do. But I went a different route, so you'll have to come see me for another presentation on that. Do you want me to do Q&A or just wrap it up? Okay, we're wrapping it up, guys. Come see me if you have questions.
Good morning. Thanks for having me up here. A quick housekeeping note. After this session, there is a break. We will have a Leadership Kerr County picture right after, at the start of this next break, after this session. So if you have been a part of Leadership Kerr County, come up here and take a picture. And then also, too, be aware that next year is the 40th class year of Leadership Kerr County. So be on the lookout for some special announcements about that heading into next year. My name is Zach Griffith. I'm a financial planner with Edward Jones. I sponsored this session as well as being on the Economic Summit Committee since inception. We appreciate everybody being out here annually and being consistent participants in this great community discussion. A little bit about our business. Myself and 6 other colleagues do financial planning for clients. So whether that's goal planning, talking about risk management, talking about estate, talking about tax, talking about investment planning, please reach out to us if you have any needs or questions, and we'll be happy to have a complimentary review for you. This next session talks about the mood in Texas and the 2025 legislative agenda. Dr. Josh Blank is the research director of the Texas Politic Project at the University of Texas at Austin, where he's conducted public opinion polling in Texas over the last decade. Dr. Blank has extensive experience surveying Texas voters about their attitudes toward the economy, state leadership, and public policy on a wide range of issues. He writes regularly and presents interviews regarding contemporary Texas politics, including elections, public opinion, and governance. His work, whether it's print or digital, has been vastly spread between Austin Statesman, Dallas Morning News, Houston Chronicle, Newsweek, New York Times, Washington Post. He is an Eagles fan. They won, so I can say that. Close personal friend of mine over 20 years, and welcome to Josh this morning.
I was going to start by being self-deprecating, but it seems unnecessary now. Thanks for having me out here. First and foremost, I have to say this is not my first time in Kerrville, because of Zach. I've been here a number of times. It's a beautiful place to visit. Don't judge me because I'm coming from Austin or because I'm an Eagles fan. I was born in New York, you can judge me for that. So there's plenty of possibilities. Let's see. Okay. So we're going to talk about the mood in Texas in 2025 legislative agenda. All right, let's see if we can figure it out. And push on buttons. Let's see. Oh, Got it, okay. Thank you. All right, so the roadmap for today, what am I going to talk about? Well, first I want to talk about economic sentiment in Texas. Why do I want to talk about it? Because this is the Hill Country Economic Summit. It'd be weird to come here and talk about a bunch of other stuff, so let's talk about economic attitudes. That's going to be the basis by which we start to talk about the legislative session, what the public's priorities are. Because really the economy is front and center right now for most people, and I'll show you that. Because I'm coming from a university, I just want to quickly say, where is this data coming from? What is it? It's coming from two sources primarily. University of Texas, Texas Politics Project polling. We've been doing this polling project since 2008. It's actually the longest running statewide survey of Texans that exists. Right now we're doing 6 surveys per year, so we survey Texans every other month on a range of attitudes, economic attitudes, but really also to understand underlying sentiment about contemporary Texas politics. The other survey, I'll say, if people have questions of the Q&A about methodology or problem afterwards, happy to answer, but let's just move on. Texas Lyceum Poll is another survey that I work on. It's a once per year survey of Texas adults. So not Texas voters, Texas adults. This has been going on since 2007, and I'm just going to pull this in for a couple interesting results. Okay. It's the economy, guys. If we're thinking about where we are in this political moment, we're thinking about the end of the last election, we're thinking about where the legislature is right now, the economy really is front and center for most people. When we ask people what's the most important issue facing the country at the very end of last year, most people said, the plurality of people, about 35%, said inflation, rising prices, or the economy. And when we say, well, how do you feel about that economy? Not great. Only about 27% of Texans say the economy is doing better this year compared to last year. 40% say we're still doing worse. Now, this is, in some ways, what's interesting about this is actually pretty good for where we've been. So we look over time, the green line is, this is how much this jumps around. The green line represents people who say that it's doing worse. The blue line represents people who it's doing better. So when we see that 40% there at the very, very end of that time series, we're actually kind of at I don't want to say the end, but we're on the downslope from some of the worst times. Why were they so bad? Well, pretty obvious, right? But one point I want to make about this that's really kind of key here is that I think people sort of fail to appreciate that we are still in the recovery from COVID and the economic consequences that followed it, right? And what's really interesting about this is we recovered much, much more quickly from the housing crisis than we have from this most recent set of sort of financial calamities. And so I think that's sort of, for people, I look around the room, I think a lot of people were probably paying attention during the housing crisis, and that felt like this humongous thing. And in some ways, a lot of the politics that sort of fell out of COVID were, well, is this a public health crisis or is this an economic crisis? And on balance, it can be both, but how are we going to address it? And what you see is that essentially, at the height of COVID and at the height of inflation, economic sentiment in Texas was worse than during the housing crisis. But not only were more people losing their jobs, but they were also losing their homes and their retirement savings. So I think just let that set in for a second. When we think of why is the economy front and center, part of it is that the scope of the economic difficulties we've been feeling over the last 5 years is actually so much more widely felt than even the housing crisis about 15 years before. So, not surprising when we ask people, this is an open-ended question, they can provide us with whatever they want. Hey, what's the most important issue in your vote in this last election? Well, again, the economy and inflation come up. Now, I'm not calling you all stupid. Again, I think most people in this room might know what that's in reference to. If you don't, it's the economy stupid. Just Google it. I won't be offended. But that should lead some of you to say, well, wait a minute. Aren't these attitudes towards the economy, aren't they just political anyway? And the answer is, well, yes and no. So yes, I'll show you. So this is the same I just showed you, National Economic Conditions Trend. What if we look just among Republicans for a second? Okay, this is what it looks like among Republicans. While Obama was in office, the economy was terrible. Horrible. Trump took office, literally the next day, the economy is better, right? COVID hits, that burst that bubble a little bit. Biden takes office, economy is terrible. Now look, Democrats are in better. I offend everybody, don't worry. Democrats are no better here, right? So we look at Democrats, the economy during Obama, amazing. Trump takes office, the economy's terrible, guys. It's terrible, right? Biden takes office, it's pretty good again. Inflation bursts that bubble, right? But then again, Democrats came back around and said, hey, you know what, maybe this is okay. So one of the things I want you to take away from this, first and foremost, is one is a prediction. Party powers change hands. We're going to see a lot of movement in people's economic attitudes over the next year. And the question you have to ask yourself is how much of that is about people sort of filtering partisanship, being for the team, against the team, whatever. just know that there's going to be a lot of variability. The other thing that I think is really important to take away from this is the fact that even given the strength of partisanship, real life matters, right? You can't tell people inflation is not a problem. You can't tell people that COVID is not impacting the economy when it's impacting their day-to-day lives. And this is part of the reason the economy is so front and center for so many people. I get asked a lot of questions leading into the elections. You know, what about the impact of the abortion laws? What about the impact of Ukraine? What about the impact of this, that, and the other? And I say, look, yeah, all that stuff matters, you know, to certain people, but you pay for gas every day, or you know, every week. You buy groceries, and if the prices are up, that affects your lived experience in a real way. That's actually really what's salient to people. It's really central to how they're viewing the world right now in a way that some of these other policy issues may or may not matter. So what do we do with this then? I mean, this doesn't, you know, I basically just discredited all this and said, well, you know, this is here. So let's step closer to home. This is from the Texas Lyceum poll, and I think this is one of the more interesting sort of trend results that I've measured over time. So we asked this question, you know, how does the Texas economy compare to the rest of the country? Now, as I said, I got here as fast as I could. And one of the things that always struck me about Texas, and I think you'll know this, is, you know, it's proud people, proud of the state, always. And if you look at this, what you'll notice, this question asks, is the Texas economy better, worse, or the same compared to the rest of the country? And what you see here is that for literally the entirety of the last decade, Texas would, without question, say, yeah, the Texas economy is better. And if you recall, at the end of the last housing crisis, it was called the Texas Miracle, right? Everybody else was having a hard time. Texas was doing okay. And that translates into people's feeling. But you'll notice that if you looked ahead to the end of this graphic, with the pandemic, that's shifted. Texans no longer feel as though the state economy is insulated in the same way that they used to feel that. Ultimately, they actually feel like we're doing worse than other parts of the country. Now, we can dive in a little bit deeper. How about you personally? We're not asking about the Texas economy. We're not asking about the national economy. We're asking, how are you doing personally? This was just the end of last year. Only 24% of Texans could say that they were doing better compared to the previous year. Only 5% said they were doing a lot better. 1 in 20. So you'd be like, that table over there is doing way better, right? About 34% said they're doing worse. 39% said they're doing the same. If you're doing the same in an economy that everybody says is bad, that's not good, right? Here's this over time. Let's make this a little cleaner. And again, this shows the real magnitude of some of these issues, taking away sort of partisan consideration of the national economy, the state economy. And what you can see is, well, COVID didn't have the same personal economic impact as maybe the housing crisis did. Inflation certainly has. And the longevity of it is actually much more notable than what we saw after the housing crisis. So what are they concerned about? So there's a bunch of different potential things that we asked each of our survey respondents to rate. They're very concerned about this, somewhat concerned. This is the sheer attendance who are very concerned. This is really overwhelming, and this has been consistent for about, let's say, a year and a half. 70% concerned about the price of everyday goods, 67% about the cost of healthcare, 58% about the cost of housing. Right? People are very concerned about costs. So what do we want to take away from this sort of opening section here? So look, economic sentiment in Texas right now has been kind of historically negative over the last 5 years, driven by COVID and then especially by inflation. High costs, right, in particular, right, everyday goods, housing, medical care is something that Texans are really worried about. I'm sure a lot of you know this. You know, most people can't, the majority of Americans can't cover a $1,000 expense. It's unexpected. I think a third can't cover a $400 expense. So because of all this, we should expect the economy to really dominate the political discussion right now. To some extent, it is. So what are we looking at the legislature? So as somebody already mentioned, if you don't know, you probably do, the Texas legislature meets once every 2 years for a 140-day session where they have to basically, govern a state whose economy, rivals Brazil, France. It's a big deal. So what are the priorities? What are they doing in 140 days? Now I should say, real quick, so Nicole Weaver mentioned, they're going to file 5,000 plus bills. They're going to pass about 1,000. One of the things I want to point out is maybe a dozen, maybe 2 dozen of those bills or even those concepts are really going to, what I'd say, rise to the level of public consciousness. These are the sorts of things that people either think about directly because they've heard about this thing, or because they already have opinions about it, it's just something they care about. Most of what the legislature does is honestly like licensure requirements, right? It's about who can operate in what industry, when, and what the requirements are for what, right? Now a lot of you guys don't really care about some of those things, right? If it's like, the licensures for like realtors, or in bank regulations, you care a lot. But most everyday Texans are just kind of worried about cost of eggs, cost of gas, how good the schools are, public safety. So again, going back to sort of thinking about December as sort of the election, actually it's October, right? Yeah, this was the October election. This poll is from October to the November election, I should say. What were people thinking about going to that election? Because that's going to funnel into this legislative session. What was the political discussion look like? What were people talking about? And what I want to focus on in this, and it's not out of any sort of preference, it's about reality, which I'm going to focus more on the views of Republican voters. Why? The majority of the state's voters, they control the majority of the seats in both the House and the Senate. They have every single statewide office. So the agenda of Republican voters really is the state's agenda, right? There are a lot of Democrats who would like to see changes to the abortion restrictions, increasing gun laws. It's not on the agenda. So let's talk about what is on the agenda. So we look at this by party. What you see is, one, I can take away, immigration and border security is almost entirely a Republican concern. And this is just to say, it's just a little sub-nugget takeaway from all this. It's not that Democrats have some really liberal views about immigration, they just don't care. It's just not an issue, it's a priority for those Democratic voters, on average. But if you add these three issues up, the economy, the cost of living, and immigration border security, that's 65% of Republican voters right there. They mentioned something about one of those three issues. And really only two issues, the economy, and immigration, and border. One thing I get asked a lot is, why do Republicans have such an easy time communicating, Democrats have such a hard time? Because honestly, you have to add up about 6 issues to reach the same share of Democrats and Republicans who just say immigration and border is the most important issue facing the state of the country. It's health care, it's gun control, it's public education, it's climate, so on and so forth. So this gives you a pretty good sense about where Republican voters are. Then we asked at the end of last year, well, what do you think the legislature should focus on? Because maybe there's a difference, right? Well, no, not really. The plurality of Republicans, 1-3, say the legislature, the Texas legislature should be focusing on immigration and border security. That should be their #1 priority. Followed by the economy, public education, and some other issues. There's a majority of Republicans right there. Immigration, the economy. Throw property taxes on top of that, we get to 55%. Throw public education, you're almost at 2/3 of Republicans right there on those 3 issues alone. And the reason I point this out is because the way that I like to think about this is most people aren't that engaged. You all are clearly engaged. You're here, you pay money to be here, you're listening to me talk for some reason, right? Like, you want to know what's going on in the world. For most people, the question becomes, hey, what did the legislature do? And when we're trying to evaluate if the legislature performed well or not, for normal people, the question being, did they address the things that I think were important? Can my legislator come to my community and tell me, I did this? And I said, okay, that helps me with prices, or that makes me feel less concerned about the border, right? That's why we focus on it this way. So when I say the public's priorities, I'm not saying there aren't a ton of other priorities. I've heard a lot of talk here today about water, huge issue. Legislature's going to take on water. I can talk about any other issue you want to talk about in Q&A. But when we think about the issues that are at the top of the public's mind, the legislature really needs to seem like they're doing something about, if not actually doing something about, it really is these issues. So we're going to talk a little bit now about these issues a little more specifically. So prices, inflation, cost of the economy, immigration, border security, and then I'm going to say public education, because that's not really what we're going to talk about in our vouchers. Okay. So the economy and cost of living. This is a tough one, right? Ultimately, there's not a lot the Texas legislature can do to make a big dent in this. Why? Well, if prices are what people are concerned about, the only way we decrease prices is how? A recession? Well, nobody wants that, right? And ultimately, the nature of Texas government is that we don't really have the political culture that would allow us to do much on these issues. And what I mean by that is the Texas legislature and Texas government are not going to institute some big new program that's going to sort of support people who are having trouble with this. It's just not in the cards. This is a low taxes, low services state. At the same time, you can say, well, wait, maybe the legislature can help business. Yeah, right. The Texas legislature needs to take its hands off businesses because they've been too overly restricted. Said no one ever, right? Because that's not what the Texas culture is. Texas culture is a small government, low regulation, low taxes. So really, we're talking property taxes here. What can the legislature do? They can affect property taxes, which can affect underlying sentiment towards costs, especially housing costs.
I said, we looked at this, we were very concerned about each of these issues. Cost of housing was rivaling, I say healthcare and food and consumer goods. So let's look at cost of housing. So 58% of people are very concerned about this. 20% of people are still somewhat concerned. It's bipartisan. This is not Democrats having sour grapes about the state. This is not Republicans worried. This is just everybody. It doesn't matter what community you're in. You might say, oh, no, this is an Austin problem. This is a Dallas problem. No. People in all parts of the state have concerns about the cost of housing. Okay, why? This is from the Lyceum poll. In 2020, we asked people, do you agree or disagree with the statement, I spent too much of my income on housing? As recently as 2020, a majority of people said, disagree with this. They said, no, I don't spend too much of my income on housing. By 2022, the majority said, no, I am spending too much of my income on housing. By 2023, it was 55%, and by last year, it was 63%. Now, I think, the next speaker is probably going to, tell us not to worry too much. And I agree, I think if you look at those trends, we're probably at a little bit of an inflection point, maybe. But this is sort of the thing that we're speaking to. You have almost 2/3 of Texas adults saying, I can't afford where I live. That's a big problem. Okay. So, let's see. So you may be saying to yourself now, and again, you guys are pretty engaged. Wait a minute, did the Texas legislature do this? Did they already do the property tax thing? Did they do it the time before that? And the answer is yeah, right? So the homestead exemption, I wrote down if I get it right, was raised in 2015 from $15,000 to $25,000, in 2021 to $40,000, in 2023 to $100,000, and now this year, the current proposal in the Senate will be raised to $140,000, $150,000 for seniors. One question is, why do we keep coming back to this? Well, part of it is sort of underlying need, and part of it is property taxes are tough, and they're tough to get political credit for. If we look back at the last legislative session, which was a huge focus on property tax reduction, a huge fight about property taxes, we asked at the beginning of that session, thinking about these state taxes, which one has the biggest impact on your personal finances? Almost a majority of Texas says the property tax has the biggest impact on their personal finances. Jump ahead to April, we're now in the session, we're talking about these issues. How important is it for the legislature to accomplish a number of new policy goals? One of them was reduce property taxes. 41% of Texas said it was extremely important, another 27% was very important. And while Republicans thought it was more important than Democrats want property tax cuts too. So then we get to June of that year, and if you may recall or not, there was a big public fight about this because they couldn't come to an agreement. At this point, only 25% of voters approved of how the legislature was handling property taxes, most disapproved, and even more Republicans disapproved of how the legislature was doing property taxes than approved. This sounds like a political nightmare. If you think about it, you've got Republicans in the legislature, majority in the House, majority in the Senate, lieutenant governor can't pass a property tax cut. Not a good look. Jump ahead to August, they finally do it. They get it done, they pass a property tax cut. We asked people, do you think your property taxes are going to increase, decrease, stay the same? People said they were going to increase. They didn't believe them. Jump ahead to December, they had time to talk about it, tell their voters, no, listen, we reduced your property taxes. Okay. We asked them, are you confident the Texas legislature will reduce property taxes? And this is key, to make it enough to make a difference to most Texans. And this comes up all the time. Is a $125 property tax cut good enough? Right? Is X dollars a month off your property tax bill good enough to make a difference to most people? And most of them, we ask these questions, the answer is, well, not really. And here we go again. So, the economy and cost of living is just a tough issue for the legislature. I think a lot of that's both political culture, but it's also the size of the state. I mean, anything that Texas is going to do, and we'll get to this soon, is expensive. Right? And it's not really our culture to have a big government program to support people who are having a hard time making rent, right? And it's not really, a fact of life here in Texas. We have an heavy-handed government that's stifling businesses for the most part. I think a lot of people feel that way. Property taxes do we have them in the minds of Texans and on their pocketbooks, and so this is the place where the legislature can probably make the most impact, even though they don't actually collect the property taxes. I know that. We can talk about it. Any efforts to address these higher costs and housing costs in Texas through property tax reform, compression, raising the homestead exemption, they translate roughly because it's not a one-to-one. I'm not giving you, when we raise the homestead exemption, from let's say $100,000 to $140,000, nobody's getting a $40,000 tax cut, right? And not only that, the underlying thing that is getting measured against the value is changing over time. And that's been sort of the issue. I went to a public event many years ago
where Dennis Bond became Speaker of the House, and was no longer the Speaker, but this was before he was Speaker. He was talking about this idea of raising the homestead exemption, and he said this is kind of an open corner, sort of surprising. And there's a reason he said it. He said, look, this is a loser politically because by the time we pass it, by the time it gets implemented, this was during the time vastly sort of increase in year-over-year home values. By the time we do this, nobody's going to feel this because in 2 years it's just going to get eaten up, and people are going to say, well, what did you do? And we're going to say, we raised the homestead exemption. They're not going to care. So this is a tough issue, right? It's tough to have a direct impact on people's, again, lives in these key areas. Okay. Again. Immigration and border security in Texas. Now, what I really want to highlight here is in Texas. One of the unique features of Texas, of course, is that we have a 1,200-mile international border, right, with Mexico, and that just puts our position in this discussion on immigration and border security in a completely unique place compared to anywhere in the rest of the country. I'll tell you what that looks like. Before I've been showing you what's the most important issue facing the country, this is what is the most important issue facing Texas. Top 2 issues: border security, immigration. For every single poll I have conducted in Texas since, let's say, 2012, and I could probably say even before that, there's only one instance in which this was not the top issue, and it was the first poll we did after COVID. And then immigration and border security reasserted itself. Why? Again, it's Republican voters. This is 53% of Republican voters said immigration and border security is the number one issue facing the state. I'll tell you, nobody says that in Colorado. Nobody says that in Michigan. This is not the way this looks in New York. And actually, this is a little bit low. Historically, we usually see immigration and border security around 60-65% of Republican voters. And I was saying this point before, what about Democrats? You have to add up inflation, leadership, economy, healthcare, gun control, taxes, crime. Those issues that aren't on here, so sort of fall off the edge. It's just to get to the share of Republicans who are focused on this one issue. And again, it's a state issue. It's not a federal issue, right, in this sense. So again, which is the legislature prioritized? I showed you this. This is why 37% of Republicans say they should focus on immigration and border. So I can show you tons and tons of results here. I have so many questions we've asked about various enforcement policies over time. The short version of it is there's widespread support among Republican voters for almost every type of enforcement mechanism you can think of, save, importantly, separating children from their parents. Not popular. But if you think about where we are right now, this discussion about mass deportations and what the federal government is going to do, I'm going to show you a question we've asked a number of times about the concept. So we asked Texas voters, do you agree or disagree with the statement, all undocumented immigrants currently living in the United States should be deported immediately? And this is what this looks like from 2014 to 2024 in Texas. And what you'll notice is except for 2 little blips, plurality, most often the majority of Texans say, yes, we should immediately deport all undocumented immigrants currently living in the country. If you look at that partisanship, it's about 70 to 85% of Republican voters. What does this mean? It means we should expect the legislature to do all it can to support administration efforts to deport as many people as it can. What that's going to look like is requiring more law enforcement, trying to get more data from government entities, and trying to see who can they enlist in this effort, because there's a lot of demand for it. Okay. So the other piece to this that you might be thinking about as engaged people is, wait, don't we spend like a ridiculous amount of money on border security? And the answer is yes. This is over time how much we've been spending. It went from about $100 million back in 2008, 2009. It's about $5.1 billion today. So if you look at this, the question is, this is a conservative state, right? Clearly, we're going to see some pushback on the spending. There's a change in the White House. We should probably see, maybe a withdrawal of some of this money. Well, if you think about 2021, we're spending $820 million. We asked Texas voters, do you think the state spends too much, too little, or the right amount on border security? 61% of Republicans said too little. Okay. How about $4.3 billion? That was in 2022-23. Okay, 23, 62%, too little. Okay. We're spending $5.1 billion at the end of this year. Is this enough? Nope, 63%. Still not enough. It's totally unreactive to the amount of money we're spending. And what that means is there's no political incentive for any of the state's elected officials to do anything that leads them to have to go to their voters and say, no, we're spending less on border security now. No, we actually agree some of the state's efforts in trying to go out and trying to get border security. They might. There's negotiations going on. Maybe that'll work itself out. But for the most part, That's just not really politically advantageous. And so the takeaways from this to say is, in Texas immigration border security are state-level issues, or state-level policy issues. Widespread support for enforcement mechanisms, widespread support for strict enforcement, likely to be pretty widespread support for immediate, sort of mass deportation efforts. And then finally, there's really no incentive to again, reduce our commitment on these issues, because there's no response to the voters to what we're actually doing. In fact, the only voters who are really responsive to changes in the situation on the ground are Democratic voters, strangely enough. So as I said at the beginning, very few Democrats say that immigration and border security is the most important issue facing the state. But it goes up, and when it goes up when the crossings go up. And then it goes down when the crossings go down. It's kind of interesting. For Republicans, the state goes up and it stays up. It has not dropped. Okay, let's do a simpler issue. That was a joke. Okay. So vouchers, ESA, school choice, and public education. Now why do I put it this way? Because without a voucher, ESA, or school choice program, don't expect much else to happen in public education. That is the trade that was explicitly made last time and is still on the table this time. And until something happens with vouchers, ESA, and school choice, all the other concerns around education are unlikely to be addressed. Okay, I want to point something out. The most important issue facing Texas, what is not up here? Education. Yeah. So the first thing I want to point out is public education, even though I think we all know that it's really important. I think if you're interested in economic development, you're a member of a chamber, you understand this is your future workforce, this is your future tax base. This is important. And if you've ever seen some of the presentations by the state's demographers, they basically, for 2 decades, said, hey, we have a really high-need state when it comes to public education. If we want our economy to stay strong, we need to deal with this. But you know what? Most voters want kids in public schools, or schools in general, right? How many of you right now have kids in the schools? That's good. This is the young. Sorry. What was that? I'm so long. But when we look at voters, for the most part, across multiple surveys, 20 to 25% might have kids in the public education system. That doesn't mean that other people don't care about public education. Let's go back to the government. You know what I really care about? What's the price of eggs? Right? What's the return on my investment portfolio, retirement savings? Am I making more money this year? Right? This is not as high standard. Again, people care about it, but it's not a top of mind issue for a lot of people. So when we said the opening question, well, what's the legislature does? Now again, we have a constitutional requirement text to provide a public education system. State political leaders have been talking about this a lot. So public education does come up here when we say what the legislature address. However, and these are open-ended, right? So I quoted these myself. I read every single response people put in. Less than 1% of all respondents mentioned anything about vouchers, ESAs, or school choice. Less than 2% of Republican respondents mentioned anything about this. Why? Well, again, let's say we have a humongous school voucher program in Texas. Totally open to everybody, very generous. You know what? 90 to 95% of the kids in the state are still being educated in public schools. It's a niche policy, right? It's a very niche policy for a very small group of people. It doesn't mean that people aren't supportive of the idea generally, it's just not going to affect most people. And so it just doesn't rise to the same level. But still, about 1 in 10 voters said, hey, they should do a public education. What were they talking about? So we asked about education priorities. We're repeating this right now. I've got the data, we have the process again for February, but this was from August of last year. So, well, okay, here's a list of education priorities. How important is it for the legislature to address each one of these? Can you evaluate each priority individually? Okay, not surprisingly, school safety tops the list, obviously, right? 63% of people say it's extremely important. Then comes teacher paying attention, curriculum content, public school financing, parental rights, public school library materials, facilities, and then we get to vouchers. So about 1 in 4 voters say it's extremely important to establish a voucher program. We can put all these different priorities against each other and what's the most important thing for the legislature to address. Here's what that looks like. It kind of follows the same list. There's vouchers. Now, you might say to yourself, but this has been a real huge priority for Republican state leaders. Maybe Republicans care about this. Well, it's about 1 in 10. About 1 in 10 Republicans say this should be the top priority of the legislature. A lot more interest in some of the other issues. Why? Well, again, I want to point out, for most people, education is not really that salient, right? So they're not thinking about these sorts of policy things. And also, when it comes to voucher in education, or vouchers and ESAs, and whatever you call it, this is something that's taking place outside of the public school. The idea is we want to move these kids, they're doing the best they can. They're doing the best they can to separate these issues out and say, no, this is coming from the public education budget, it's a program over here, it's totally separate. Nonetheless, all of those things happen inside of public school. Safety, curriculum, pay, financing, curriculum, even some of the other public school facilities. And so, ultimately, when people think about public education, most likely they're thinking about, how are the schools in Texas? And when I ask people, how do you think the schools in Texas are? It's tepid. More people think they're excellent and good than think they're poor or terrible. That's the blue line of the orange line. But also, when we break that out, very few people think they're excellent, right? That's the bottom line. Fewer than 10% of Texans would say the public education system here is excellent. And so really, when people think of public education, that's much more salient to them than, well, what should the value of voucher be? Should it be attached to formula funding? Should it include, federal funding? Nobody thinks that way. At least, none of the normal people. Maybe some of you can talk to me afterwards. Okay, so again, that's what's taking place inside the public school. It's almost 90% of people are focused on these sorts of issues. And again, when we say go think about something like financing, what we find is we ask voters repeatedly, does the state spend too much, too little, the right amount on public education? Overwhelmingly, always, more people say too little than anything else. And while Republicans are split on this issue, the plurality of Republicans will say the state's spending too little on public education. This isn't driven entirely by Democrats. There's a sense here that maybe the schools are under-resourced. In particular, I'll say this issue pops up, especially at the beginning of the school year where there's articles out about schools not having enough teachers. People pay attention to that. This issue, the spending thing, again, this is not a urban suburban rural thing. I just want to point that out. This is something that is a concern of all communities. So, what do we take away from this? Well, one, public education is competing with a number of other priorities. And they're generally more salient. There's things like cost of living, they may be, I'm saying things like immigration and border, of course. If you're Democrats, you may care about public education, but you also care about the gun laws and the state's abortion laws. And I would say the establishment of the state program is just not a high priority for me in Texas. And I can tell you more about that in the Q&A if you want. There's some other ways we've looked into this. Now, I should say, if you ask people, do you support or oppose the establishment of some kind of program like this, you are going to see support. But I'm going to tell you right now, and again, I'll say this for the Q&A if you're interested, that support is soft. And what I mean by that is that it's not informed by a lot of considerations, and it's not informed by any sort of intensity for most people. And the reason we know that is because if I change the wording of a question about school vouchers, the results vary wildly. Right? If I simply mention that it'll take tax revenue and give it to people, opposition increases dramatically. You know who increases among? Republicans. Because it is kind of like a humongous entitlement program, if you think about it. And I sort of do the math. You have 4 kids, let's say $40,000 a year, so that's $480,000 outlay from the government to individual families or the lifetime of those students. That's not very, normal for Texas. And so we can, again, talk about that. And I'd say the current policy debate of these PSAs is in this broader context of views about public education, where people aren't overwhelmingly positive about Texas public schools. Now, I should say, everybody loves their local school. So you go and you say, hey, how are the Texas, break the quality of the Texas public schools. It's okay. What about where your kid goes? Great. Same thing with Congressman. Everybody hates Congress. Do you like your congressman? Great guy. It's just one of those things. But I would say that there's a broader context here, which is the state hasn't really increased its spending on public education since 2019, and a lot of people have pointed out because of inflation, the actual per student funding in public education has actually decreased since 2010, 2011. And so there's this other kind of broader context going on that even for people focused on public education, there may be some other priorities. Okay, let's see, how am I doing here? Okay, 15? Great, that's perfect. So everything that I've talked about here today is available at this website. Literally every graphic I showed you, I just downloaded. If you like this kind of thing, we write about it all the time. A podcast, which is crazy. We have over 200 episodes I think we recorded over the last, maybe almost 9 or 10 years. We talk about this kind of stuff every week, what's going on in the legislature. So if you are a nerd for Texas political content, public opinion data, visit that website. You can reach me here, you get polling data, podcasts, but for that, I'd like to just take your questions and see what you guys think.
Thank you, Josh. Let me just say, questions, please raise your hand, and one of the committee members will come and mic you. Speak into the handheld mic, so everyone can hear the questions. And we have Justin, Zach, you won't mind, Brian's in the back. Thank you, Josh.
You can ask me anything. I can talk about these policies, or other policies, or things going to the legislature right now. Or I'll just give you your time back.
So a question about the general political state of Texas and the future. If you look at the maps, obviously the metro areas are blue and everyplace else is red. There's been some, I think, question about is Texas turning purple. Can you comment kind of on the trends in the future political alignments in Texas?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, Texas is purple. I know, it's crazy. There's a sort of sense, I think, and you know, it's sort of pushed forward, I think, by, honestly, Democrats looking to raise money. But this idea that, you know, we wake up one morning and Texas will be blue. You know, the demographics will have shifted, and all of a sudden, you know, Democrats are winning all these elections. Ultimately, demographic changes are a very slow process. Political change is very slow. And what we notice is if you look at the election results in and around different areas, for sure, but also in the surrounding counties, what you're seeing is increasingly competitive elections in those areas. What's been interesting and what's sort of, I would say, compressed some of that impact is that Republicans have done such an amazing job at turning out voters in the rest of the state. And they've also done a really good job at finding new voters. I mean, one of the big stories of this last election was the gains Republicans made in the Rio Grande Valley and along the Texas-Mexico border. Now, if you follow Texas politics from sort of any sort of angle, you know, you think like the entire state's population, or let's say the entire state's Hispanic population is located in the Rio Grande Valley. When the Rio Grande Valley contributes about 3.5% of the statewide vote total. It's a very small part of the state. It's very economically depressed in other places. It's not really representative. Having said that, Republicans have done a really good job seeking out voters in those areas now. Does this mean that Republicans are making gains among Hispanics? I think in some cases that's true, but it's in a way that people fail to appreciate the complexity of which is this. It's not about race, it's about class, it's about morality. Ultimately, Republicans have found a lot of Hispanic voters in South Texas and along the border who basically, for all intents and purposes, are conservative voters. They're not living in city centers. They're not necessarily college-educated, living in Austin, whatever. These are conservative voters. And so, while Democrats have made gains, really election over election for the most part, this last election was not a good one, but that was partially because of the economy, right, which was. They've actually made the election much, much closer in each cycle, but the issue is that Republicans are also stepping up their game, and because they have all the institutions at their disposal, it's easier for them to hold on, right? The Democrats don't have a governor who can go out and hold a press conference, right? They don't have a lieutenant governor who can prioritize legislation. They don't even have the ability, really, in the legislature to really fight very dramatically over a lot of stuff. Even when they're tried from time to time, that really backfired when they left the state, for example. And so because of that, it's just a slow movement, but the movement's happening, and it's very clear. I'll say one more thing about this, though, because it's interesting. You know, when the state went from Democrat to Republican, a big part of that story was this idea of white flight. There was a lot of people leaving Dallas and moving outside of the city center to find something different. And ultimately, the Republican message had a pretty good purchase in some of these new suburban communities outside of Dallas. I think it's really interesting about people moving right now in Texas is that, you know, those sort of suburban counties that are now increasingly competitive. It used to be people were moving out of the city to those suburbs. Well, now people are moving to those cities, but they can only afford to live in those suburbs. And so those places are very different. When you think about a place, you know, for example, like Collin County in Dallas, used to be, you know, extremely conservative, right? But you start to look at those vote totals, you know, that's looking a little different, right? And so these places that used to be ex-urban are now suburban, and instead of people getting away and people coming in, that's where they can afford to live. And that's what's adding to this sort of political dynamic and the
competitiveness and why, your point was basically right, which is, yeah, the urban cores are very Democratic, the rural parts are very, very Republican, but the issue is that the blue is expanding as people come in because they want to live near an Austin, or they want to live near San Antonio, or they want the opportunities that Dallas provides. They just can't live downtown. So that's part of all that's added to this. Yeah. Comments? Nope. Nope.
You said that only one independent Republicans really care about this school choice issue. However, Governor Abbott has made it his number one legislative priority, and in fact, he declared it an emergency priority. So, do you have polling that shows why there is that separation in importance?
Well, so first of all, the governor can declare any emergency item he wants, and the legislature actually can address it or not. First of all, the only thing that an emergency item does is it allows the legislature to vote on bills prior to a 60-day limit. And the idea of the 60-day limit was to say, you guys should debate, for a little while, work through the process, then we'll start passing bills, unless there's an emergency. Definition of an emergency is pretty broad, and ideally the idea is it's supposed to be for a real emergency, but that's not how it's used, that's not how it's ever be used. It's a way to establish priorities, right? It's one of Governor Abbott's priorities. He's making a huge priority of this, but here's the issue. I know from the public opinion data that he's not it's not a salient issue to the public. I also know that during the primaries, two things happened. One, Governor Abbott basically campaigned against incumbent Republicans who voted against school choice legislation in the prior session and was mostly successful at knocking them off. The sort of dirty secret about those races is that none of those campaigns were about school choice. He didn't go to those districts and say, Representative Kemble, needs to support me in school choice, or you need to vote him out. He said, this representative is not going to support me on the border. I need someone who's going to be their full-throated support on the border. That's what happened in those districts. Those campaigns were not about school choice, and when we asked voters in particular, we asked primary voters during the primary campaign, hey, what are you focused on? What's the issue in the primary for you? And we've asked Republican voters in the Republican primary, so what are the issues that are driving your vote in this election? Kind of like all the time. The sheriff said anything about school choice, 2 to 4%. It was immigration, it was the economy, it was conservative government, it had nothing to do with this. So then the question is, why is Abbott over here on this issue and why? I have to speculate. Obviously, so you'll be generous with me for a second. But there's a couple of things. One, I think it's a little bit of a black eye for Texas, right? And Texas considers itself to be one of the leaders in terms of being a conservative state. If you think about it, the last regardless of sort of political rhetoric around, the last 2 or 3 sessions have been incredibly conservative. The legislative outlook has been incredibly conservative. The only thing that they have not been able to do, because they didn't have the votes, was create the ESA program. Now, some of that is because we can talk about why that's the case, but ultimately, this is a black eye. This is sitting out there saying, hey, why can't the governor do this? There's also a piece of this that has to do with internal fighting. Lieutenant Governor has been a champion of school choice since his time as a state senator. This has been a signature issue for him for a long time. And to some extent, there's always a little bit of back and forth between the leadership about essentially who's setting the agenda, who's accomplished it, who gets to take credit. And as these two, long-serving politicians have been playing out this dynamic between themselves, what I've noticed over time is the way that they try to work with each other and around each other to essentially establish the agenda and then take the credit. But Abbott's gotten much better at it. And so I'll tell you what's going to happen. One, I think they're probably going to pass it. I say probably only because there's a real question about what that legislative vehicle looks like. It's very difficult. The House has a lot more concerns than the Senate because the House is just much closer to their communities. Most House members know that public schools are a huge employer in their district, cultural center, and don't want to see any money come out of it. In these smaller school districts, if you lose $30,000 in funding, that's going to be a problem, right? You're going to have to try to figure out who's going to teach this course, or who's going to drive the bus, or whatever, right? AISD will be fine, honestly, right? But in general, what this is about is who's going to accomplish this and who's going to claim credit. What Abbott's going to do is if they actually do get something across the finish line, he's going to say, I delivered for you. And if they don't, he's going to say, they failed.
That's it. But the one thing I will say is that, you know, the interesting thing about this policy is if you look at other policies in other states, none of them compare to Texas in terms of its size, in terms of student population. I mean, this is going to be a huge program. It's going to have a huge impact on a lot of things.
Josh, do you have any breakouts in the data? You looked at Republican versus Democrat. What about income level or how long people have lived in Texas that would change some of the conclusions you had?
We do have all that data. We have a really extensive set of demographics in the back. So we look at income level, we have education, basically socioeconomic measures, you know, more generally. We do have sort of residential movement. If you were born here or moved here, and also if you moved here, where you moved from. Just so you know, most of the people from California are kind of conservative, just throwing it out there. But, you know, not really, because in some ways, those things are, in some ways, impacting partisanship, right? So as the parties sort of, I think, you know, I'd say homogenize a little bit on the economic front, as they've been doing over the last number of years, you see a little bit less of that. So you see a lot more sort of college-educated views among Democrats, and then the incomes are higher, so you see that. Among Republicans, you actually don't see much difference, so I guess I think that answers it further. You know, I always look at college split, and so we look at college-educated versus non-college educated Republicans and Democrats, and there usually is a pretty notable gap between college education as a proxy among Democrats. Among Republicans, very rarely do you see any sort of divergence.
One more. Have you found any of this data to be predictive or forward-looking at people's sentiments, say 6 months from now?
So this is where the economist comes in. See, I don't do that. Thank you. I was like to say, you know, we can end on this because it's boring. So if you're a social scientist, the idea is you've got an equation, right? And it's sort of like, okay, you know, this plus partisanship plus income plus, you know, whatever equals some kind of outcome. And as a social scientist, I'm interested on this side of the equation. I want to know about the relative weights of like income. And if you're an economist, I'm sorry, I'm being stupid, but like if you're an economist, right-hand side, what is the outcome? What is the predicted value? What if we change these? What's next? So I'm not trying to do that kind of thing. Also, I'll just say, you know, I think studying public opinion is a little bit foolish, you know, because you just don't know what's going to happen, right? And I think that's true in some ways in the economics, but in economics, a lot of the factors are fixed, right? In some kind of ways, at least, you know, at least a lot of major factors in public opinion. You know, you think about it right now. Think about the White House, think about just all the movement we're seeing on all these different policies. These are areas that in a lot of cases nobody's thought about. And one of the things I like to point out, and I'm going to end on this, is that, you know, I think my take on the election, looking at all this data, is to say that for most people, following the last number of years, there's sort of a polarization in information acquisition. Some people like can't get enough, they've got to follow everything, they've got to read everything. Some people are like, I don't want to hear any of this at all, right? And I think that's a lot of people. For a lot of people, this election came down to is, look, the economy's not good. I think it was a little better than the other guy. Yeah, the academic stuff, but you know what? I'll take a chance going back over there. Now, we're embarking on a massive transformation of government. I'm going to tell you, very few voters were saying, like, yes, slash federal spending, slash the federal workforce. There's lots of Republican voters in West Virginia who get heating subsidies, right? There's lots of Republican voters who rely on this, you know, these sorts of government programs, just like a lot of Democratic voters. And so, to sort of make a prediction about where we're going to be, other than instability for me, I'm not going to go there. I think I'm going to be here, so I'm happy to have a good conversation with anybody on the side. Thank you all for having me out here. I really appreciate it.